Jennifer Counter, go in the microphone ag of ye. Nach huch teams as na phonish and wife. Maar schuif a geestje gruschen at a hangeke as gewil schuif son breen could have it a microphone bestoosje Jeremy a honische neus Morrison are traurig le fakel own. Appelates.
Lord our God, we thank you that your mercies are new to us each day, and that you would continue to bless us as individuals and as a committee of this council at this time, Lord. You know each one of us personally. You know our needs, you know our thoughts, you know our actions. You know even our thoughts before we can even think them, Lord. So therefore, Lord, we humble ourselves in your presence, for you are a God who knows us intimately. But most of all, those of us who know you in a saving faith, Lord, you are a true friend that sticketh closer than any brother. We ask that you would continue to go before us. We do not know every circumstance in everyone's lives, but you do, Lord. You are the one who is able to take control of every situation. We especially remember those who are less fortunate than we are this day, Lord. Maybe some who are listening online who would dearly love to be in our company or to be with us, but are not able to do so through ill health. We thank you, Lord, for the health that we get each day, the simple things in life that we take for granted. We remember those who are a hard providence in life at this time. We hear so often and we are reminded of the brevity of life. We are a changing world, Lord. We think that tomorrow will follow today, and we think that the next day will follow on from there. But when we see time flying by so quickly, that we could put our hope and trust and confidence in our God, for you are the one who prepares that celestial city. Oh Lord, we know that we are on a journey there. We remember the Chief Executive, especially at this time, Lord, that you would richly bless him as he comes to the end of his career here as Chief Executive of this Council. We thank you for his stewardship, his direction, for all that he has done to this Comhairle over many years. Oh Lord, we pray that you would, as he endures another journey in life, that you would richly bless him. We thank you, Lord, for the chair of this committee and the vice chair. We are grateful to you for them also. We bless Anne-Marie also as she leads this team of this committee, Lord. All the officers who have prepared reports and all who are present with us, with each and every one. We ask now that you would be with us as we deliberate the papers of this committee, and that all will be done for your own glory. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. The meeting has now been recorded. In regard to the conduct of the meeting, a reminder of the following. If you're a member of the committee attending remotely, please leave your camera on and your microphone off. Officers attending remotely, please leave both off unless you're called to speak, to report or answer a question. A reminder to members and officers in the chamber of the queuing system, the chair controls the mics. First in the queue flashes green and the remainder are solid green. The chair will allow each flashing mic in which will change to red. Only 2 mics on the floor will be red at any one time. If you wish to come back on a question, please leave your mic on, and officers speaking who reports, I would advise you to do the same. Committee members will be given priority. Regarding declarations of interest, members must leave the chamber or end the call remotely. Finally, a reminder that the meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the Comhairle's website following the meeting. Now, before we move to the formal agenda, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the fact that this is the last meeting that our Chief Executive, Mr. Malcolm Burr, will be attending. In fact, it's very good of him to attend today, given it's his 60th birthday, so we congratulate him. We congratulate him on reaching that milestone. But Malcolm, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you for your counsel and advice to the committee over many years. Over 20 years, you've counted them all in and you've counted them all out. You've seen a lot of changes in this committee over these years, and you've been associated with many of the accomplishments and successes of the committee and the Comhairle over that time. And we're going to miss you. We're going to miss your advice and counsel going forward. But we'd like to wish you and Chrissy all the very best for the future, and hopefully you'll remain active in the community and in public life in some shape or form. But best wishes for the future, and thank you for all your hard work. Okay, as in eisiau gwrs at eisiau iar counters, can you tri wag an y ffordd, y fion sio, son undachig. Apelaib, Cwsbyrga, ger counters can you cheer to wag an y nolach, son undachig. Apelaib, Quad ma ag bail an y cwsbys y bydd y chwar oplwch bychor iaifsyn sy'n y chwarach, bydd ffemel ma i'n mael yn yfyr haid y chwarach yn hwys nwyau an y chwsba. Anyone with that?
Kenneth.
Councillor Kenneth MacLeod. Sorry.
Tapelais, va men am i'r charig ys yn y bysig comandol chos i'n siarad gawch cwn began mi as yn y las so yeah sian eisiau mis tosi just
Oh, chalig Jules, and sy'n Cronsaby. So we'll now move to item 4, the presentation from the Outer Hebrides Heritage Forum. As report, covering report provides a brief overview of how the corner supported the work of Comhairle and Sgal and the strategic links between the forum's activity and the corner's own heritage, culture, tourism and community priorities. Colin George is going to speak to the report initially and answer any questions, and we'll then invite Louise Matthews, the Development Officer Manager for the Forum, to deliver a presentation which showcases achievements since 2022, future ambitions and key challenges within the local heritage sector. So we welcome you, Louise, but we'll first go to Colin George, who's going to speak to the report.
Tapel of Harry Ginmustora, Kustjoch, Ries, Spaltje geduld, Louise, Hana, manager Lesochi, ek Commandoges, Ishagal. Be Kruidgene, Builheth, Lene, Aces and Homer, and you come Jolige Louise, Gaharich, in Yanaku, Hassas, and the Uber, Dolges, Turner Communiactri, Ace Buin as a Hoyschnock. Just on a Paganarama in Nash, ha Commandoges, Ishagal, Priov Buin, Cornachi, Garain Dolges, the Hoyschnock, as the Helen and Year. Is hannaig dochter bakken wark fussige gabeid en haike Comhairle shachat harish in a blian gaan shachat is ha sin gach kutstro unie voor offigaden skippe dolges kulter de Comhairle is kutjok maar giesef ek ga point gegaat en naig tromenige sin shachat mile noot aan de fixe ga fixe 3 93 point geschia mile aan de fixe 3 fixe keer is ga point shia mile ton of project Hebdien homecoming. So an like shot could you really fast look uproch, lesoch skillen is jierige ro ilok in great place. Hanus e krie lesoch dochish fag den jaren Siar. Maar sinje hij moest daar hoor is could me kusen alke Louise with shallik courage gave dat na gai golene kurike show.
Tablet, Louise, Falcher. You press the button at the bottom. That's it. That's you, live.
Eskema. As I have already been introduced, I'm Louise Matthews, the manager of Commandoges in Sgal. I'm here to talk to you and give an overview of the heritage sector in the Outer Hebrides as it stands and how we got here. So there are over 60 community groups in the Outer Hebrides that currently do heritage work as part of their remit. Of those, 28, as shown on the map, are currently members of the forum. And of those 28, 6 are accredited museums alongside the 2 Museum Nanyelin sites. There have been a lot of developments in the community heritage sector in the Outer Hebrides over recent years. Those that you can see on the slide at present are just those that have been successful in their capital funding applications in the last few years. and hopefully we will see a lot of further development within the sector. We also have award-winning heritage. So the digital app-based US Unearthed is award-winning, and 2 of the Land Raiders monuments have been awarded as part of the work that was done for those. We have seen success with national loans. Ness has had a number of loans from the National Museum of Scotland, while Kinloch has also had National Museum of Scotland loans. They've also had further partnerships with other museum bodies throughout Scotland. Museum Nanyelin has also seen success, marked with various spotlight loans from the British Museum being exhibited at the museum throughout the years. It's also should be noted that Museum Nanyelin is one of only 2 sites that currently has a long-term loan from the British Museum in the form of the Lewis Chessmen, and that is something that should be recognised and celebrated. Looking at the funding successes that have led up to the start of Comhairle in Shigal, there was the Lewis Castle project, which saw the redevelopment of the site and the new building in Stornoway for the new museum host and archives. The Great Place Scheme, which was National Lottery Heritage Fund funded, which saw the development of a 10-year heritage scheme for the whole of the Outer Hebrides. And Comhairle in Shigal came into being in Leverburgh when they signed the Constitution in August 2018. So what have we achieved since then? In 2023, there was the formal launch of the Great Place Strategy, which is the 10-year strategy for the heritage sector in the Outer Hebrides. We have staffed the Heritage Forum. So we started with a 2-year development officer, and now we have 3 years in post for a manager, another development officer, and our admin assistant. We had a 3-year pilot project that saw work throughout the Outer Hebrides, Hebridean Homecoming, that ranged from the Homecoming Week in Barra to finally the Emigration Conference at Museum Nanyelin. We have produced a pilot themed heritage trail in the form of the venues trail that you can see on that slide, and we have had 2 conferences for Comhairle in Shigal in 2024 and 2026. Which allowed for the members to meet and receive some training and generally talk to each other in ways that they can't with the geographic spread of our membership. Work that's currently in progress. The Comhairle Heritage Service is working on the development of their 2 new resource centres, which will replace the current stores. We are working on sector skills development work, which includes conference work, but also we're looking to produce a full programme of works that allows for training for all of the community heritage groups. And we are generally giving support to the Community Heritage Service sector, which includes advocacy at a national level in the future. So we are working on getting a full funding package for an economic impact assessment. This will give us a baseline for what the economic impact of the heritage sector overall in the Outer Hebrides is. We are also going to look at the social value of the heritage sector. We are looking to develop more income generation means for the heritage sector. So currently, the majority of sites are reliant on their shops and their cafes for income. And we're looking to see how we can spread that a little bit more so it's not solely reliant on the visitors to the Outer Hebrides. We're looking at further heritage programming to build on the success of Hebridean Homecoming. And we're looking at more youth engagement, which is part of the work to make a more sustainable heritage sector, as currently we have a problem with the majority of the volunteers being aged over 60. And we really need to see more young people involved for the future of the heritage sector to continue. So overall, we're looking at producing more networked projects and more partnership work, which will involve work with groups outside of the Outer Hebrides as well. The ultimate aim is to enhance the long-term sustainability of the sector in the Outer Hebrides. There are a number of challenges that the heritage sector is currently facing. Funding. While capital funding has been very successful to get the buildings to the state they are now, we are struggling for core funding and revenue funding. So those are two things that we're looking at, how we can further support the groups to get that, and we are having conversations at a national level to see how the current funding scope can be changed so that hopefully there'll be a shift away from project funding. Staffing levels. Currently, the Comhairle Heritage Service is at a much reduced rate to what it was previously. They aren't in a position to provide the professional support that they once did to the community heritage sector, and that has affected what everyone is capable of doing and what capacity there is for support. Facilities, as previously mentioned, the current stores are not necessarily fit for purpose, so there is work underway to get funding to make new resource hubs. Accreditation. So as I said, there are 6 accredited sites within the community heritage sector. However, there is only 1 accreditation mentor present, and best practice is 1 mentor per site. So we currently have a deficit of 5 mentors. Previously, the Comhairle Heritage Service would have filled that gap, but with the capacity struggle they're facing, they don't have the capacity to give that support. We are working with Museums Gallery Scotland to see what we can do to attract more people to offer the professional advice needed for accreditation. And generally, attracting more volunteers is one of the big challenges presently. Tangentially, we are also dealing with the problems within the tourism sector. The changes that Visit Scotland has made with the withdrawal of their eye centres and the ceasing of their quality assurance programme has had an impact on the heritage sector. The funding, as you may have heard from Outer Hebrides Tourism previously, they are themselves struggling with funding, which again removes more support for the heritage sector as a whole. The cruise sector, we aren't getting the benefits from the cruise sector to all of the heritage sector. Those based in Stornoway are seeing footfall, but we aren't getting it outside of Stornoway, and more work needs to be done to either provide or encourage an alternate to the cruise sector or to spread out the benefits of the cruise sector developments. Overall, the island facilities and infrastructure needs some work to better support the tourists who come. There aren't as many public toilets as there could be, the state of the roads and things like that do impact on the impression that tourists get and will affect whether they decide to return in future. There are 3 key things that we feel need to be dealt with in the immediate future to better support the progression of the heritage sector in the future. The first is to strengthen the Comhairle Heritage Service, be it giving them more capacity so that they can provide that professional support, or just generally giving them more support so that they have more capacity to undertake their old roles. There needs to be more opportunities for young people. There used to be programs that were run. There was a variety, including the one that our development officer undertook when she was in high school, that encouraged them to build heritage skills that can then be used and draw them back to the islands once they've got their further education. And it may seem slightly tangential, but improved signage is also key. There are many signs on roads in the Outer Hebrides currently that are out of date or inaccurate for the signage. You can't find places because there isn't enough signage to find them. The benefits of investment in the heritage sector: the more investment that's done now, the more stable it will be in the future. If we can get more growth, particularly in jobs within the heritage sector, then the heritage sector will become more healthy, and there will be the professional advice service within the islands themselves without having to go to the mainland to seek help for specific things. And we have a high number of return visitors. If we invest in the heritage sector, it will attract more people to return and visit again and again. Investment doesn't have to just be financial. Your political support and statements of support for the heritage sector have a value in themselves. You can encourage people to look positively on the heritage sector in the Outer Hebrides. There's also to be noted, many of the awards that are won within the heritage sector are self-nominating. Alive, any questions?
Thank you very much, Louise. Do members have any questions for Louise at this time? Councillor Gordon Murray online.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Good afternoon, Chair and Committee, and thanks a lot for the very interesting and important presentation you gave there. It was very informative, and it's such an important sector to the islands as well. I just wanted to pick up one little point, just a question, and I noticed that there was network and partnership working, and I wanted to ask, does this refer to or include twinning with other places in other countries? Because as you'll know, we've got quite a diaspora that may be interested in their birthplace of their ancestors, and it might be useful to link up with places, especially Canada and the US. So was that part of any plan at all? Thanks.
It's not part of any formal plan, but it is something that we're looking at because the diaspora is important for the heritage sector. It wouldn't be direct twinning if it was pursued. It would be looking at what partnership organisations exist in those other locations and what work they were willing to do with our own community heritage groups.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I'll look forward to that developing over the period. Thanks a lot and good luck.
Thank you.
Cónaiche Dún Mac Súáin.
Tapalov agus Tapalov son in Tashbanach. Ha mi picture in point hoku me yen buai na cruise ships agus Comhairle Búnach at the Vian gan skiën tuamoi Palestine ha agus sharu adjoch ha mi brinrast mar niach mar bau board studio de seidoch gausing agus kujoch mar verre ha fein Búnach van lochturische was in the cruise ships. Ha mi vi feikin mar ha de seidoch gausing vi koord noch kusen an de kan tua loish gewel sin tor Búnach gehortesteach gan skide fat immer toch boeien materiaal. Agus am sminnig geris shuns stoge soorse roet de chauffeur kwaad is viachen de neus soort januan skiden elke kutjoch. So ha mi kuntige gewel tullige te sound gewel storne waar gefain kus ha met de intelligent kan je a ha korman kutjoch gan konns nog kanelle.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Golson has done really well in acting as a middleman for the groups in North Lewis and getting that access to the cruise sector. And it's something that we haven't seen develop as much in the other areas, and they could really learn from Golson.
Thank you. Members have any? Seen any lights? Are there still any other areas in the islands that don't have commonalities? Are there ones you'd want to set up and haven't done so yet?
There's a commonality on every island pretty much at this point.
Okay.
There's just not necessarily as much outward looking in some of them, so we could do a lot of work to present the value of more networked working for all of the commonalities throughout the islands.
Yeah. Any other questions for Louise? Oh, natuurlijk. Cónaiche Dún Mac
Tapleif, der Kadach agus Tapleif schon náske was schon ich halten kan. Agus geharid am finken oorlogheid culture schon anevas agus adeket agus de Jalashin mar Comhairle ha te gaan Eilean na lapanische ha glose de kieschen het luchturisch agus ga kogunige janu scho kunnen glose den rast koju agus sinna far roisinne finkin va kieschen domachonu gydas yn ei anw. Y Sean toch toeristen is diach agus gared ja mach a balistone wa agus de challes sint an de leus agus na herige seo ha barach uitig kunnen is equal nul smaak den halwak as de koerstukken agus sulemi gel karman gan huidig kan elasjont loze de janu schon sa ha Skousen de janu Sean talig de deunjesteach gan atige nationach maar de goede haatje gaan je kade we gaan down van de de kussen maar kon nu agus am iedere kuma de kunje natuurlijk aangeweerd de janu schon de oor economische geheid culture toort kan helan agus de janu schon agus kunje satje schon am je geskel oog moorden de hin kan helan de lijn de nuppe de janu en de plionchen hashahat agus kunje het loog economische goede schon.
So we're finalising the funding for the economic impact assessment at the moment with the intention for it to run from around May this year till December. So the report would be in 2027. And it would be covering the heritage sector specifically within that economic impact assessment.
Thank you, Louise. Any other questions from members at the moment? No? Well, if not, Louise, thanks very much for your attendance and for your presentation. I think you have the support of the whole chamber in terms of the value and impact of the Comhairle network. It's a really important network to us as communities. So we look forward to hearing more from you in due course. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do members agree to note the presentation report? Thank you. Sin was het gekusbare koog. Planischen Servicen Gnielges als Quadachen hunderten oprischen Eich gleich Nordofficer. Als een Eich een huwelijke comedie show hebben plannen Gnielges als Quadachen economiker als Abjoge komstochen. Als Brini aan een Moroch is een Eich.
Thank you, Chair. So the report contains a link to all the service business plans and operational risk registers across the Comhairle for 26-27. The service business plan for economic and community regeneration, which is the one of relevance to this committee, that's at Appendix 3 and it's at pages 27 to 44. So I won't go through it in detail, but just to confirm that there should be no change in terms of key service areas or our overarching strategic priorities. We have reviewed the key operational risks for the service, so these continue to be areas such as uncertainty around external funding streams, the conditions that museum collections are being stored in, pressures on the medical adaptations budget, and the reliance that we have on small numbers of professionally qualified staff, particularly within some of our statutory services such as planning. Appendix 4 provides greater detail on how we're managing those operational risks, and the detailed operational risk register for the service is at pages 5 and 6 of Appendix 4. So a few points to highlight from the business plan itself. In addition to the revenue budget, we're managing significant amounts of external UK and Scottish Government funding for third-party projects, usually capital. So that includes Eilean's Growth Deal, Community Regeneration Partnership, and RCGF, among others. We've reviewed the KPIs for the service in quite a lot of detail for the coming year, in line with new performance reporting requirements across the Comhairle. So hopefully these are more, we've tried to slim them down, we've tried to make them more meaningful and measurable. So we'll see how that goes for the year ahead. Then looking to the business plan actions, we've reviewed these. These are largely been continued from the previous year. There are some additional ones relating to new sources of external funding coming through, such as a Community Regeneration Partnership and other funding. And then the actions really just relate to the support that the service is providing to key economic sectors and projects, the work that's been done to secure and manage external funding, strategic work of the service around areas such as housing and planning, and service delivery across Gaelic and heritage, business support, planning and building standards, among other areas. So happy to take any questions on the service business plans. Nothing radical has changed from last year, but happy to take questions or feedback.
Any questions from members on this item? So insofar as this committee's interests are concerned, do members agree to recommendations 3.1? Thank you. Item 6, business continuity plans. The report is for noting and provides an update on the status of business continuity management across Scona. Most up-to-date documents in relation to the business continuity are available to members on SharePoint, and Anne will speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. So just to confirm that we've carried out business impact analysis for all the service areas. There's 2 service areas that have been identified as needing a full business continuity plan. These are the museum service and homelessness, and we have business continuity plans in place for both of these. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you again. Any questions at the moment from members? Okay. Insofar as committee's interests are concerned, do members agree with recommendation 3.1? Thank you. Was het gesprek intermenigig tijdig 2026-27 en aangeschiedig inter die konant menigig harikse tocharbers konigi uai chess is on 2026-27. Is Breen Shusho reached? Maar alleen natuurlijk.
Thank you, Chair. As stated, this report seeks approval of 39,000 funding for TIG's Energy Advice Service for 26-27. This funding is the only remaining tranche of grant funding historically provided to partner agencies to support the delivery of the local housing strategy. And the Energy Advice Service provides an important service in addressing fuel poverty and energy efficiency issues. The report outlines their work in 25-26 for the first 3 quarters of the financial year in assisting 930 clients with inquiries ranging from basic energy advice to more in-depth energy support. The quoteless funding provides essential match funding, which enables the Energy Advice Service to make applications to other funding bodies, allowing this vital service to continue. Last year, the Energy Advice Service were able to secure £336,000 of funding from external bodies and provided homes in the Outer Hebrides with a client financial gain of £478,000 as a result, including direct contributions to utility bills at a time of significant energy price increases. And in the uncertain times that we're living in with regards to energy, it is a service which we continue to welcome. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lorraine. Any questions? Councillor McCormick.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Lorraine, for your report, which just highlights just how very important these services are to us and how important it is that we continue to resource them. And the thing that troubles me is that you see here in the report how much money has been secured by the service for the islands, how much more we could get if we had a greater funding to offer them. The poverty group recently had meetings with the Fuel Poverty Advisory Panel. First of all, we met on our own with them, where we were able to emphasise just how difficult the situation is in the islands with regard to fuel poverty and how we need support for that. And we then further met with, Mr. Cunningham and I met with the Fuel Poverty Advisory Panel brought together all of the island authorities for a kind of roundtable discussion. And what I took away from that is that the advisory panel now has a far better idea of just how difficult fuel poverty is in the islands and how important it is that the Scottish Government support the islands with financial resources. And one of the things that had troubled me a lot when we had the initial report from the advisory panel was the fact that a sum in excess of £1 billion had not been spent on fuel poverty in Scotland. And I just couldn't understand that, because we could certainly have made use of it had we had access to it. And I just don't understand why that money is lying, not being used. So I think that because of the meetings we have had with them and because of the positive story we've been able to give from the like of Lorraine's report here, I think the next report that goes to the Scottish Government, which I think unfortunately will not be until December of this year, but I think it will be much more blunt in advising the Scottish Government on where it should be directing its resources and that it should do so in a hurry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Any other questions or observations? Thank you, Lorraine. We all value the work that Chess does in the community, and we're more than happy to support it. So, do members agree with recommendation 3.1? Thank you. So, item 8 is planning, governance, planning decisions, predetermination, hearing protocol. Report seeks approval for an update to committee procedures in relation to the consideration of planning applications subject to a mandatory predetermination hearing procedure. And Maura Ferguson is online to speak to the report. Maura. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. A predetermination hearing is required to be offered by a planning authority in relation to applications for planning permission for major developments which are significant departures from the development plan, and also for all developments classed as national. The purpose of the predetermination hearing is to allow the views of applicants and those parties who have made representations to be heard before a planning decision is taken. With a predicted increase in the regularity of such hearings over the next 5 years, we felt it was timely that the Comhairle procedure for holding of predetermination hearings was refreshed and updated. This is to ensure the hearings can best serve their purpose and be conducted efficiently. The draft predetermination hearing protocol is attached as Appendix 1 to the report. I'm happy to take any questions in relation to the item.
Thank you, Maura. Any questions from Mr. McCormick? Would like just on the okay. Any questions from members on that? At the moment, no. Thank you, Maura. The recommendations are 3.1 for your approval. Thank you. Cwsbaranau, Dochus as Coulter, Muin Gneverson, Cruachel as Cultural Schema Rianoch, and Ashishidach Inte as Son Schema Show, Son Paviliona 2026-27, Sa Arnavoroch, Dobrini Shanaj.
Thank you, Chair. It was agreed at the February 2026 series of meetings to establish a Creative and Cultural Industries Fund from this year's Crown Estate Revenue Fund allocation, and that report suggested that a scheme of administration would be brought forward to this Sustainable Development Committee. So what you see in the report is just a bit of an overview of the background to establishing the fund, and then the proposed scope of the fund and how it's been proposed to administer it. The scope of the proposed fund is to cover creative industries, arts and culture, Gaelic language and heritage activities. We're seeking to make it a reasonably straightforward and quick application and decision-making process, and the report is seeking approval for the scheme of administration at Appendix 1. Assuming approval today and then at full council next week, we would look to have applications open from the 1st of April with a closing date of the 30th of April. We're suggesting that a scoring framework would be put in place, scored by 3 officers, with recommendations being made to the Chair and Vice Chair of Sustainable Development, and feel that this is appropriate for the amounts involved and the need for reasonably speedy timescales. We're also proposing in the appendix a minimum and maximum grant threshold to make awards reasonably meaningful, but also to try and support as many applicants as possible. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Questions from members on? Cynwch MacLeod.
Thanks for this, and yeah, I welcome this. Just a wee possible suggestion, amendment to number 6 in the conditions. Rather than starting off with 100% intervention may be available, to start off with scoring or preference will be given to projects that have already secured funding, but in exceptional circumstances, 100% intervention may be acceptable. I think more and more organisations are now going for a requirement to have some match funding first.
Thank you. Yes, that's no problem to change that. I can see why the tone of that would be better worded differently. Thank you.
Thanks, you, McCall.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for the report. Did you say that the applications would open on the 1st of April and close on the 31st of April? Sorry, maybe I picked you up wrong. Sorry. 30th.
Yes, looking to get the application, an online application process, and so hopefully can get it up and running on the 1st.
I don't know, in my own head, I'd envisaged this, that people would be applying. I appreciate this may not be very realistic, but we are applying sort of throughout the year. Could it not maybe done into 2 lots, maybe one half in April and half in September, to give other people a chance that might not necessarily have any projects on the go at that particular half of the year? Sorry, I know it's creating more work as well, but just a thought.
Yes, no, I take on board the comment. I suppose for the amount involved, and it's probably easier to weigh things up against each other in the round. So, but we can see perhaps who comes forward in this round and wouldn't maybe necessarily look to award all the funding if they weren't of a sufficient quality. So perhaps scope for a later round if it all doesn't go out to good quality applications in April. Does that seem fair enough?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, at least you wouldn't be pressurised and having to spend all the money in the one go. At least, like you say, if you felt there wasn't enough or there wasn't anything rewarding it enough, you could always have a second go and later. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Think there any other questions? So, do members agree with recommendation 3.1? Thank you. Cúspaireadh tógáil beartas cáisneach. An aiscetóid tar seabhach bille tógáil beartas cáisneach. As a mábhar chiad téman do chóna de bhí bualachach féimachcin rechtas asúr as a ha bhí as a Anna and a short of Reen.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, the Community Wealth Building Scotland Bill will place new statutory requirements on the organisation. The report provides a bit of a summary on the principles of community wealth building, which aren't new to the Comhairle and have long been reflected in our approach to economic and community development. We are expecting detailed guidance from Scottish Government, but we can anticipate a requirement to put in place a community wealth building partnership and an action plan. So the report outlines some proposed first steps, including work that's been done recently on an action plan, and proposes that we take a local first approach to community wealth building. We are seeing a move perhaps to a regional approach, Highlands and Islands level, but I think from the Comhairle's perspective, it would be best to look at having a local partnership in place first. Just to also note an error in the report. At 7.5, it states that the cost to local authorities is estimated at 20k. The costs have actually been estimated at 120k, which is a Scottish Government assessment of the staff time that would need to be put in and commissioning, basic kind of monitoring and evaluation. But position hasn't changed in that there's no indication at this stage that local authorities will receive any additional funding to support delivery of these responsibilities. So in summary, the Comhairle has also always welcomed the principles of community wealth building. We've got a good basis to move forward in meeting these new statutory requirements, and members are asked to approve the next steps. Happy to take any feedback or questions.
Thank you. Questions to be acting, I'm sure. Cannot.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Sam, for the report. I think you're right. There is a danger that regional is seen as local in terms of community wealth building, and we wouldn't see the benefits if we go on that basis alone. So the recommendation to ensure we do something locally first is absolutely right. It's something that we've done as a Comhairle, but it's good to see the legislation coming through and support what we've been progressing ourselves, but also just being wary of unintended consequences of looking at things at regional level. So thank you for that.
Apparates cannot. Principiële Curinster. Comhairle wil. No, someone's going. Okay, wil Baile kunt in huis gehoord van hier. Apparates. Cusper. Hutjak. Kan ook touwen kampu in hier balabanig. Naast geschiedig unte. Dooi. Gustouwen kampu in hier balabanig kan ook. Sarah Alison Irwiners on Brings Nash.
Thanks, Chair. This report is largely just to reiterate that a decision was taken to allocate £500,000 from the Community Regeneration Partnership funding. Discussions have been ongoing with MOD for quite a while about how we get to move forward with the purchase, and we await evaluation from Graham and Sibbald. I think it's important to acknowledge that whilst the funding might be there to purchase the site, there's a piece of work to be done to make sure that it's appropriate to do so. So we'll be progressing with that internally. And as you'll see from section 7, that there'll be significant consultation on future potential uses of the site. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Members? I'm sure. Okay, the members agreed to recommendation 3.1. Thank you. Item 12 is consultation on increasing Electricity Act megawatts threshold. Report seeks authorisation for a response to a Scottish Government consultation on increasing the 50 megawatt threshold, which determines whether applications onshore electricity generating stations are decided by Scottish ministers or by the relevant planning authority. And John Cunningham is here to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, it's a consultation by Scottish Government on increasing the threshold under which Scottish ministers would consider planning applications for generating stations. At the moment, below 50 megawatts, the Comhairle would determine these applications. Over 50 megawatts, Scottish ministers. If there is an increase to 100 megawatts or 150 megawatts, it would mean more decision making by Scottish ministers, and on the face of it, less local decision making. But we have to balance that against pressure on our own planning service and the capacity we have to deal with more applications. So on balance, we're recommending that we stay with the status quo, recommend 50 megawatts on the understanding that the Comhairle will be consulted as statutory consultee for each of these ministerial determinations. So we'll have full input, we'll consult our own stakeholders, we'll have a debate here in the chamber, and we'll send a view to the ministers. So we still have considerable influence. But happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions from members on this item? No, thank you. Francis Murray.
Thanks very much, Chair. I just wondered if you've got any sense on how other areas are responding to the consultation, because it would be, you know, obviously a difficult position if we'd responded to say we didn't want to increase it, but you know, that was outweighed by other areas' opinions.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. In terms of our island partners, Shetland they sought an extension to the consultation and weren't successful, so they haven't actually responded. Orkney are thinking along the same lines as ourselves in terms of pressure on the service. Beyond that, we're not sure, but a lot of planning services are under extreme pressure. And at the same time, the government's consent unit seems pretty well equipped to deal with some additional applications.
Yes, having had discussions earlier in the year or last year on this topic with yourself, I did have the impression that it wasn't just we weren't in isolation in this view, and that pressure on planning services, and particularly in smaller authorities, is a nationwide issue rather than something that just pertains to here. Thank you.
Councillor McCormick.
Not directly on the decision that we're taking, which I reluctantly accept. Is it not the case that 2 of our onshore wind farms at the moment have no CFDs? And if they have no CSDs, do they no longer have access to their grid connection? And if they have no access to their grid connection, could we allocate it to our community wind farms instead, which don't depend on CFDs in the same way?
We are digressing from the report's context, but I'll ask Karen to.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, Councillor McCormick's correct. 2 of the developers have had to surrender the CFDs purely because the delivery windows didn't align with grid availability in the island. These CFDs would have had delivery windows of 2026, 27. We wouldn't have grid available 2030, 2031. So they really had no choice but to surrender. They will be going back into allocation round 8 for another CFD. Maybe they might get a better deal. But regardless of that, they do still hold their grid connection as a separate issue. They still have their grid connection contracts in place. The only uncertainty would be if they didn't get a CFD in allocation round 8 and their project wasn't feasible, there might be a challenge then with grid connection. But at the moment, they have current grid contracts.
Thank you. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief point, just acknowledging the recommendation in the report about it's a realistic recommendation. You know, I think in different circumstances we would probably have had a different one, but with the pressure on planning services across the country and certainly within the workload that our own team are facing, I think it's probably the right decision. So I'm supporting the recommendation.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Can I ask John, given we've known about the pressures from the planning service here for probably the best part of 2 years, and we've made representations to the Scottish Government about how we are going to possibly have a bottleneck of work coming forward, and we know there are such a paucity of planners across the entire state in Scotland just now. Have we had any movement on getting additional support or additional resource to help us with what's coming up?
Yeah, we thought initially, Chair, that the problem was just finance, local government finance, but we've since discovered that there's a failure in the supply of planners in that market across the nation, as Councillor Murray's mentioned already. It's just very difficult to recruit planners regardless of what resource you have. Shetland, Orkney have vacancies. We're on our 3rd attempt to appoint a planner with resource. So that's the real challenge. In terms of government support, the planning hub's now up and running, and they've helped us a lot with consultancy work, particularly with the SSCN application. they've funded some consultancy work for us, and Aberdeenshire Council are offering support through their team once the workload relaxes a bit. But it's difficult to see what to do without the market for planners improving.
Tapla nach Carach. Amidalische Janort, schon a Mollige, der Bialu schon, da schon ja kümmert de Messe Choloten, als Chole, Gomorche, ne Konoten Hesse, Fanekle Javaken Jesche, Teich, Nachelchen Fin, Irdes schon durchgebrochen hinter schon planig. Agus nix war mit Janu, da hat Takte gemacht, Ronne schon, nachher Prochin Charo. Irdes mi schon, da hat ja Dunja Syre hot gan rein, agus schon meine Biegen mollig schon nacken, agus sin ku barach golich is de sluite gaine agus meine golishin for Morak, da vai tot fistra gan Ronne show. Schon farkan kunot en små haron, da helt Luca Procurora in raste schon rotaron, agus söle mig gre no jaar misschien dollar door dan misschien jurig kom ik komen zo kun je dan ik janu schon voor in de bolona dat je het kilowatt.
Okay. Live. Wel bail gyntoch ych dysyn mwyn ag 3 pwynt hyn. Cwspa 3 tia canais so sydd uter is record yn hwle gychwnig i reelbus yn hawape. Pluimse broen Jake Lechgien son boonach coins nog voor oe en wachel Siar. Ian en Shories son Brinisnash.
Thanks, Chair. 2 key points in this consultation: the level of community benefit that should be paid out per megawatt, and the involvement of local authorities in community benefit governance. These are the 2 kind of key issues raised. The consultation proposes a community benefit level of £6,000 per megawatt installed for onshore renewables across different sectors. It's worth noting that 15 years ago, maybe, Stornoway Trust and the Corner were successful in achieving £5,000 per megawatt. And if you adjust that for inflation to nowadays, that will be over £8,000 per megawatt that should be on offer. So we're pushing in the response for a minimum, I think, of 7,500 just to reflect that uplift we should have had. In terms of local authority inclusion, again, as in many documents we're seeing, local authorities tend to be excluded from community benefit governance and negotiations. So we're pushing back against that in the response and urging the government to recognise that the Comhairle is the community, is representative of the community, it's fully accountable to the community, and its outcomes and aspirations are to better the life of the community. So why should it not have access to community benefit? But we've rehearsed that many times in the Chambers, Chair. But that's the basis of the response, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. John. Mr. McCormick.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, John, for your report. I took part in the Scottish Government's consultation on community benefit, which took place in Stornoway Town Hall. The table at which I sat, everyone round the table was from a community wind farm background. The suggestion from the Scottish Government as to what might be an acceptable level at that time, which was offered to us on that occasion, was Whiteley Wind Farm, which was built in 2008. It has 215 turbines, 539 megawatts, and it has in all of that time paid out £9 million. Bangrejack, on the other hand, was built in 2015. It has 3 turbines, 9 megawatts, and since 2015 has paid out £10 million. The comparisons there is the point that I'm trying to make. I don't think that the level of benefit is anything like what it should be. 7,500 is nothing like as much as what I think it ought to be for community. And I agree with Mr. Cunningham that the money should be coming to the local authority, because the local authority can add to that and make it a greater resource than it currently is, and can use it better than if it went to, say, a small community group or something of that nature. And I don't either like the idea that it goes to a group which hands out wee bits here and wee bits there. You're looking for a community fund that will actually do major things for the community. And that is what we require. So I would support the highest figure that you can think of. If you think of making it £8,000, why not make it £8,000? If that's the figure that we feel we ought to have now, and impress that on the other wind farms we're talking to. And I mean, the response so far from our offshore wind farm is, in my view, just pathetic. It's going to make billions of pounds over the years. I'll never see it, but I would like this community to benefit from it. And the way things stand at the moment, it's not going to benefit very much for all the imposition upon it. So I think we should be arguing for as much community benefit as possible. This so-called industry standard has stood ever since I've been involved with renewables, which is, I don't know, 2005, I think I started. It should be much, much higher than it presently is. And I'd like to suggest to Mr. Cunningham that perhaps we should be suggesting a figure of, say, £10,000.
That's the will of the committee, Chair. Happy to insert that into the response.
What do people think? Want to round it up to 8? Or? Higher.
I agree with Angus. I think we should go for as much as we can get, because if you don't ask, you don't get. That's a start of the. Now, can I take this into figures? The Stornoway wind farm is a 200 megawatt project. If we go to, say, 8,000, as we were proposing the first things, that's roughly £1.6 million per annum. Am I right? So over a 20-year period, I've forgotten your figures, Angus, but I'm just trying to get the comparison in the figures. The Ushinish one will be 165. So we're talking about, again, you're talking about less than that, about £1 million a year. So that's what I'm trying to get the ballpark figures. When we talk about £8,000 per megawatt, I think we should be looking at it what we're going to get per annum. Let's look at these figures, and let's look at the figures that Angus has quoted. Sorry, I should have said I'm not on your committee, and I'm impinging upon the time of your committee member. But maybe we should be looking at that figure, saying how much we're getting per annum. Because I do agree, I absolutely do agree that the community benefit should come to the Comhairle and again, it's on a Comhairle-wide basis. Those people who are unfortunate enough not to get the benefit of the turbines on their land, especially if you're in crofting law. Crofting law dictates that a lot of the shareholders are going to get a lot of money. There's going to be a lot of money within the shareholders from this. We agree with that. So I think that we should try as much as possible to get as much as we can. And there's no harm in asking. There's no harm in asking for 15, as the deputy chair says, but certainly I would be looking at 8 or 10.
Any other comments? Mr. McSween?
Ja, mis go fémi seo bhí tónas áta, bh mi fiachan is an halvan a bharach as an ruta gyn di cwn yn y geeltoch fachan blion yn y ga agus hamis mewn gur cor 200,000 achgasan as a rudach heen. Ja, kortjech mile koju sam hafus am korotun galach in the hort nori coke jerk of a mishmich coke jerk joch. Ha could drug am come he's nori the no raf.
I could drag arms, could you? Any other? Daniel, Kenneth, Floyd?
Maar gaan niet samen zien dat gaan uit begorgen je weet al zorgen ha boei worden heel aan is maar heel gaan je heen dat je een boei as kan hij een boei gaan kaarsak en krius bedoel zo ha boei kun je like maar heet de school gach hamis moet maar is mooi jaren zien wel maar het jaren zie zeg has niet werkelijk was te zorgen je daar zo kriu gaan is coach kun je
Ik weet de goedelijke gleschen, kook jerk mile. Nee, maar. Cushion gaan een ijs krijgen is. Very good. So, do members agree recommendations with that adjustment upwards? Can't you wish in is? Kook jerk, okay, the Great British Energy Local Power Plan. The report seeks to apprise members of the contents of the GB Energy Local Power Plan and the relevance of the plan to the Comhairle and the communities it serves. John again is going to speak to you.
Thanks, Chair. It's gratifying to see a national government document that reflects so much of what's happening here and the aspirations of the Comhairle and its partners. The successes of the community energy sector are headlined in the report, and there's a real push for including local authorities in the situation going forward. So it's very much a partnership approach envisaged. There's specific support promised for shared ownership, which we're obviously pursuing through Eilean Shared Energy, and also a promise of rapid policy and regulation change to enable access to affordable electricity from local generation. So these are two things that the Comhairle has been pursuing for some time, and it's good to see it coming back in not very specific, but certainly promises of support in the areas we're pursuing. But happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, John. Any questions on this report? Councillor McLean.
I'm not a member of your committee, but there's one or two questions here, John. Is in 2.2, you talk about peer-to-peer trading of energy between island generators and local consumers. Now, my question for that is, how does this square up? Because I've been in touch with some of the companies, and the companies, these multinationals, electricity produced by them goes straight into the national grid. Is that correct? That's what they say. Yeah. And then onward distribution across the UK. It does not come into the local grid. It goes straight out as if you've got a pipe, and that pipe is taking it all the way down as far as to London, maybe even further. There is no opportunity to stop. This is what I'm asking. Is there an opportunity of stopping that and generating local electricity? As far as I'm being told by them, there is no possibility for that to happen. So this business that we've been hearing of, that we're going to generate an awful lot of electricity here, it's not going to come into the local households. It's going straight down, straight across the Minch and down. Is that correct?
Okay.
Yeah, Councillor McLean's correct, Chair, in that all electricity is exported to the wholesale market. If we wanted electrons to go from turbine to home on the island, we would need private direct wire, a whole new network on the island. Peer-to-peer trading takes advantage of the national network, so it accepts that electricity is going to be exported to off the island. We would buy electricity back from the wholesale market. That electricity goes into the wholesale market. We'd make a deal with the generator to purchase some of that back. So it's a sort of virtual. It's not direct electrons flowing to us, but buying in the same way that if an EDF power station in England generates electricity, we buy that as a Comhairle. That's our electricity. So on a national network, it doesn't really matter where it's generated. You're buying it from a wholesale system that covers the whole country. So the secret would be to make a deal with a local generator in terms of what they sell to the market. Could we purchase a portion of that? And then it's available to us through the wires that are running across the UK. So it's a kind of virtual. It's not that easy to explain, but it's.
I take what you're on. In other words, you're trying to get a purchase agreement with the generator, the manufacturer of the generator, who would say to you, instead of, I'm just taking this as a £10 for a megawatt, we buy it for £5. I can't see the generator and giving it to us for £5 when he can get it for 10 if he's going across the minch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just on the peer-to-peer, Chair, the analysis per circle I've done at consultants. I think at the time of the analysis, the price cap of electricity was roughly 26 pence per unit, and they broke that down into 9 pence wholesale cost to buy it from the wholesale market, 9 pence for system charges, which are unavoidable, a couple of pence for governance arrangements. So they came out at 21 pence, discounted 21 pence on the wholesale price. The trick for us would be to ask the developers to treat that electricity as a form of community benefit and sell it to us well below the 9 pence wholesale price, or even donate it in best case. So if they're willing to put a portion of community benefit towards the loss they would make on that electricity, we could be purchasing it well below wholesale price, or even getting it donated. And they are open to it. We've spoken to them just last week, and if that's possible through regulation, they are open to it.
Well, the reply I got on a quote, it is not possible for the same company to both produce, that's generate electricity, and distribute it. So he said it was impossible. So how are you going to think they said that it's possible to distribute some of it?
Well, they sell through an intermediary, so we would deal with it. It wouldn't be the actual generation company. They'll have the intermediary that sells to the UK market. So we would deal with them rather than the actual generator. It just goes back to the local power plant thing, Chair, where GB Energy are promising that Ofgem will be flexible. And that's exactly the flexibility we need to allow a generator to sell below wholesale price. And if they allow that, we can then benefit.
Mr. McCormack.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, this is the crux of the matter really is how do we get energy? How do we get to use our own energy that we prepare at the moment, and we're obliged to sell it. Now, there is a small Point and Sandvik Power are selling a very small amount of electricity locally, but they don't sell it locally. They sell it. We just sell it to the usual person that we sell it to, and that person is selling some of it locally at a different cost. I don't know how that works, but presumably it's up to the person who buys our electricity what they do with it after they buy it. What it seems to me is that there needs to be a significant intervention by government, and I think the government do wish to have this intervention. I hate them when they say it's going to be down to Ofgem. I don't trust Ofgem as far as I could spit. So we do need government to come into this, and this has been discussed with the two energy ministers who visited us recently, and I think they're very sympathetic to finding a solution to this. The regulations that we're currently working to were set up donkeys years ago for the benefit of the producers. I mean, for example, we are still paying, if Point and Sandvik Power is switched off by the grid, they pay us. That's bizarre. In what other industry do you get that sort of perk? And as far as the national generating companies are concerned, that payment that comes out of our standing charges is 25% of their profit. They don't need it. And that is a political decision that has to be taken at some point down the line. And I do believe that these matters are being looked at. But I think, John is trying to argue for how we can do it under present regulations, which is extremely difficult, I would think. But we should also be arguing for the regulations to change so that they are in favour of the consumer and not the producer.
Any other? Mr. McSween.
Taplof, misschien nog een wel as an ahish show ha toraun the ho massa ha boine coins nog get janu ha de blianige me yedig gaan je me bulog keintjoch de ho jet moch swa Comhairle as an opad va sin het fat ha sin kujoch gefeikin tor me jen joint ventures smar ach mar sin coinchen mar ha Comhairle ne project in móra sin chail sin tortgaine bu noch ceart ha ne coins noch gannach in adiet sin a rutten ha sadavach a gunne sé ne project in coins noch agus catch vel hul kala sin de fi isteach Comhairle shared ownerships gyri peanuts community benefit Comhairle sin macior gan helan na seo ha féimisinne ru de Siar gan helan Comhairle ru de Siar gan a system gan a grid agus sé nopad a sin janu gi de coins noch ru as kutremiche.
Appellate sin was swain. Danielle gyri hin isteach gan seo. An a hill ha recommendations sec 3 point gehin. Oh, sorry, Vice Chairman.
I was just going to ask John, given we've been waiting for somebody to do something about the apparent impasse, and I don't know how far Angus can spit, but I don't think I trust him that far actually. The system is rigged, and it's rigged for the big guys, and it has been for many years. It was great at the very beginning when the likes of PST, Horsham, Gulls and Tulsa, etc. got onto the grid and managed to secure a rate for their generated electricity that produced so much benefit for the local communities. And then all of a sudden we saw a dieback of that because there was no capacity on the grid when we fought for the interconnector to have spare capacity for community renewables to get onto the grid. And then things became progressively more difficult for them. And now we see a situation where grid connections are so hard to come by. And the system is tied so that it's very difficult for grid connections to be achieved by small community energy companies and small communities getting onto the grid. And the hoops that they have to jump through. Angus MacDonald's here from Knock and Sordo. I mean, we've been, myself and Finlay have had communications with Angus, David, etc. over the years, and the difficulties they faced in trying to get a connection, trying to get a turbine on the Stornoway Wind Farm site, and the opposition they faced from the system, from the big conglomerates who are determined to stop them and trying at every turn to hinder their progress. Will Great British Energy, will they make that easier? Have they made the system a little bit more accessible for community turbine companies who want to get onto the grid and produce energy and produce profit and give it back to their communities? Because the way it's rigged at the moment, they have to find so much money up front, and there's so much of the ongoing costs that they have to find before they can actually get anywhere. It's deterring them from even beginning to start the planning application process to get onto the grid. So the whole thing has become, from where it was when PST, Horsham or Tulsa, etc. started to where it is now, and almost an impossibility for the small guys to get anywhere. You know, we found that we've bought into, or we're hoping to buy into a de-risked joint venture. Will GB Energy make a difference to the small guys and helping them get on the grid? Because when Michael Shanks was up here, he was told of the virtues of community energy going straight back into the communities. I mean, that was sold to him hugely, I think. You know, would we be able to say that GB Energy are now going to make a difference to these guys, or are they going to make a difference to the likes of ourselves who are willing to invest, and like 80 megawatts bought 20%, etc. Will it help across the piece so that communities can get some of this energy back? The whole thing we're arguing about just now is we are producing the energy here on these islands, and the benefit to us is frankly, it's minuscule compared to the profits that the big companies are going to make. And we need to address that somehow. if it's a case of getting cheap energy back to help electricity bills, because the islands which Angus has been passionately fighting for 10, 15 years, will GB Energy, can you tell us, John, roughly, I know it's a broad out and it's a big question to ask, what difference will they make in the end of the day?
John, I think the question's clear.
A big question, Chair. I think the problem Councillor MacDonald alludes to is the introduction of the CFD, the contract for difference. That introduced a kind of lottery element to the whole thing. And when that came in, first of all, communities were expected to obtain planning permission, go into a blind auction, which they might not win, and only when they secured this result of that auction could they go to borrow money for the wind farm. So it was almost impossible under that regime for a community to build their own turbines. We lobbied hard with others for reform of the grid access system, and that's come through to an extent now. There's been a relaxation where it's going to be easier to get a grid connection, and some of our local prospective generators have what's called a Gate 2 offer. So Gate 1 is ready to go right now. Gate 2 is waiting in the wings to go. Still a lot of challenges, and the sticking point there really is NESO rather than Ofgem. It's a national energy system operator who succeeded National Grid. So it's up to them to run the grid access arrangements. They're promising to be flexible, and we've had promises from government as well that there will be some flexibility, some more flexibility in grid access. But it's something we continue to push, grid access for communities. But it is improving, but still very challenging.
Staffa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, John. John, just I think when Mr. MacDonald was talking about community projects, is there any way the government or anything can be dealt with the MOD objections and which present a big restriction for any projects in used?
Yeah, we've had discussions on that, Councillor Rosin, through the Used and Barra Community Energy Forum. It's something I think that the Economic Forum in Used is looking at as well. There was something in a UK government document about piloting a change to radar in England. So we said we would follow that up to see that could that be done in the Hebrides, because apparently with a small adjustment it could make a big difference. So it is something we're working on through the Used Forum and the Energy Forum in Used.
I think a few years ago when we were involved in building the 2 turbine in Clachan, there was the discussion at that time, if they upgraded some upgrade to the St Kilda radar, that will open quite a lot of spaces, and that's been done now about nearly 10 years. They upgrade to the St Kilda radars. So I don't know if you can shed some light or take it further or just see where we are. Thank you very much, John.
Yes, it's a live issue, Chair, so we'll push that with the MOD.
Mr. McSween, briefly, please. Well, I want to wind this up. Mr. McCormick.
Thank you, very kind, Chair. Thank you. Prior to coming in to this meeting this afternoon, Chair, there was quite a bit of discussion around these issues when we were having lunch. And there is clearly a deep concern amongst all councillors that major developments are coming to these islands and we were not going to get a suitable benefit from these. And we have been trying to do through the planning system, we tried to put some restrictions on SSEN, for example, and try and get some benefits out of them. But some of the discussion we've been having today, I mean, you can see the type of benefits that we're really looking for. We're looking for benefits which will really make a difference to the community in return for the negatives that will come with these big wind farms. I'm not expecting any kind of solution or anything today, but I wonder whether there is a case for having a discussion on this at some point at some suitable, so that we could maybe draw up a plan of action for what we're going to do going forward. I mean, our officers are doing what we're asking them to do, but it seems to me that the members are really beginning to get angry at the lack of response from our developers. And we've had reports back to the group that we have where we're getting reports back that some of the developers just aren't responding properly at all. And that's just not good enough. And I think as a council, we should be taking a pretty hard line on that.
We have been, Commissioner McCormick. Over many, many years, we've been making representations to developers about better community benefit. But at the end of the day, essentially, it's the negotiation is between the developer and the landowner. Mr. Cunningham, do you want to come in?
Yeah, Chair, a lot of community benefit is voluntary and there's a limit of what we can do under planning. So as you say, a lot of it is negotiation with developers directly.
Mr. McSween, briefly, please.
Det hele samskwydd forum a hadol yn rast a son na bwyn yn coins nog so honle so hulten je fi kushens jach a vel doi awn hu GB Energy agus hul kala sho vel doi awn na biachgen ik na bwyn yn coins nog a ha cruach jalain agus security jalain je cruach vel doi awn rut ik yn chuda doi far a fashion yet shun doi focus da shun janu.
Nach ro minister Cunningham ri bwyn coins nog. Gyda fa
Yeah, we've had 2 visits from Energy Minister, Chair, and they met with the community. For ourselves, we meet with Community Power Out of Hebrides, which is the umbrella group for the community generators. And in the GB Energy document, there's a call to action looking for partnership between local authority and community. So I think that's a good opportunity to take forward what Councillor McSween's suggesting and get together with the community and submit something collective to GB Energy.
Okay, tap loop. Mr. McInnes, can you?
Ai tapalat nach cara. Dida ha kamera dort von o chora ga haken wa ministed de wabos va schön gan kisten go nicht ja ro doise mi han de fege boyen not kaist noch karm fide de grid agus maar mis vi kin ruus dus dat had daarne je grid de hort noordle spirit de mare ik denk kiot megawatt agus sulmi kwant in de figure na wakken had het tot gan chaistok en rast kochiet mire nocht schon hat tot gach blionne gan ja tunierten jelan gan 4.8 million agus da no de gasen even 4 megawatt gan en nou kiot ha shachat gan chaistok was 4 million nocht reet de figure in de big kolema a cormac sin hula blionna shachat agus sulmi cumanted spirit na mara far in janigat fiem gan chaistok cum glór sé na de gasen fugin gan megawatts a hacks an shachat gan chaistok agus fydig sin corm nóir sin gan chaistok cumanted dat yoga tiene di janu de no ja tiene kiori klosta dort an mis weekend do jelle jot dunjelle ha smack gaked fine de grid.
Joris,
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of sounding simplistic, until this incestuous relationship between Ofgem and the large power companies is put into the light and questioned, I don't see the situation changing greatly. I don't know if you got any feeling from the Energy Minister who was up, whether this could be put into question at all, because it's wrong. And they're not on our side. They're on the side of the big companies of GMR. Thank you, Chair.
I didn't meet with the Minister, so Mr. McCormick, Mr. Cunningham, are you able to enlighten us on that?
Yeah, the GB Energy document, not so much the Minister, but the GB Energy document does promise an overhaul of the relationship. They have told us that the energy system's back to front. They acknowledge that. It was generation in England pushing distribution to the remote areas. Now we become a key supplier of electricity for the whole nation. And it's just how long it takes Ofgem to catch up with that. The system is the wrong way around at the moment, and they are promising to take steps to address that. It will take some time, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the recommendations are 3.1 for your agreement. Item 15 is reports outstanding, and that's for noting. Okay. The next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on Tuesday, 16th of June, 2026. Thank you for your contributions and for your attendance. And again, best wishes to Mr. Burr, and good to see Mr. Joyce online as well. Thank you for joining us, Martin. And see you soon.